The chandelier light feels colder than usual tonight. I sit at the long table in this overpriced restaurant, surrounded by the low hum of polite conversation and the clink of crystal glasses, while my own family performs their favorite ritual, tearing me apart in front of a guest. My parents and older brother have been doing this my whole life, but tonight there's a new audience. Valeria, my brother's elegant fiancée, who smiles beautifully and says all the right things while they casually dismantle me. She's still playing with that little app of hers, my mother says, voice light as if she's discussing the weather. She turns to Valeria with a small, pitying laugh. Aria calls it her startup. We call it a hobby. My brother doesn't even look at me when he adds, one app among millions. Nothing special. I feel the familiar tightness in my chest, the same one I've carried since I was small. Every report card that wasn't perfect, every interest that didn't lead straight to medicine, law, or finance. To them, I've always been the unfinished child, the one who never quite grew up into something impressive enough to display on the family shelf. Dad leans forward, elbows on the tablecloth, wearing the expression he saves for charity cases. You know, Valeria, we've offered her a proper position at the company more than once. Something stable, reception desk, answering calls, greeting clients, a real job. He says it like he's handing me a priceless gift, but she prefers her little project. They laugh softly together, a practiced, harmonious sound. Valeria gives me a polite, uncertain smile, the smile of someone who hasn't yet decided whether to pity me or simply pretend I don't exist. I don't speak. I haven't spoken for most of the evening. I let their words wash over me the way I've learned to do, like cold water running down glass. On the surface, I stay calm, expression neutral, fork moving slowly through the barely touched risotto. But underneath, deep, deep underneath, something else is moving. Something patient. Something gathering weight. They think they're winning this old, tired game. They think the silence means surrender. They have no idea. Tonight isn't the night I break, but it is the night I finally decide exactly how I'm going to break them. I don't remember the first time they decided I didn't belong at the table. I only remember realizing, somewhere around age 12, that the beautiful invitations arriving in cream envelopes with gold foil were never addressed to me. Every important family event, the annual winter gala at the country club, the summer charity auction, where my mother always bid outrageously high to be photographed, holding the winning paddle, the black tie dinners where deals worth millions were sealed over vintage Bordeaux, was carefully curated without my name on the guest list. My mother would stand in the doorway of my bedroom, while I sat cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by textbooks and the first clumsy wireframes of what would later become my app. She'd smooth the silk of her evening gown and deliver the same gentle, rehearsed line every time. Sweetheart, we're just worried you'll feel inadequate. You know how these events are. Everyone talking about universities, internships, trust funds. I don't want you to feel small. She said it with the soft concern of someone protecting a fragile child. But I wasn't fragile. I was furious. And the fury only grew sharper each time I watched the chauffeured car pull away, taillights disappearing down the long driveway, while I stayed behind in an echoing house that suddenly felt too big and too quiet. My father never bothered with excuses. He preferred humor, at my expense. I'd overhear him at brunches or golf course mixers, glass of scotch in hand, chuckling to his friends. You should meet my daughter Aria. She's the family artist. Spends all day tapping on that little phone of hers. Thinks she's going to be the next Zuckerberg, but with worse hair. Laughter would ripple around the table. He'd wink at me if I happened to walk by, as though we were sharing a private joke. We weren't. The joke was me. And then there was Damien. My older brother has always had a very particular kind of generosity, the kind that comes wrapped in disgust. I was 19 the first time he slipped an envelope under my bedroom door. Inside, 5 crisp $100 bills, and a single typed note on his personal stationery. Buy something decent to wear next time you're in public. We can't have you embarrassing the family name in thrift store hoodies. He never signed it. He didn't need to. Later that same year, at one of the rare family dinners I was actually invited to attend, I wore the navy dress I'd bought with his money. It fit perfectly. I'd chosen it carefully. When I walked into the dining room, Damien looked me over, nodded once, and said, loud enough for our parents and the two business associates at the table to hear, "See? Was that so hard? Now you almost look like you belong here." He smiled like he'd just performed an act of charity. My mother beamed. My father raised his glass in mock salute. I sat down, folded my napkin across my lap, and smiled back. Small, polite, practiced. Inside, I was memorizing every word. Because that was the moment I understood something essential. They didn't just look down on me. They were afraid of me. Not afraid I'd succeed. That possibility never crossed their minds. They were afraid I'd fail loudly, that I'd become visible proof their perfect lineage could produce something flawed, something ordinary, something that didn't photograph well in the society pages. To them, I wasn't simply the disappointing daughter. I was a liability, a crack in the brand, a walking risk to the glossy illusion they'd spent decades polishing. Every time they left me out of a party, every backhanded compliment, every helpful envelope of cash, it was damage control. They weren't raising me, they were containing me. And all those years I swallowed the humiliation, nodded, stayed quiet, let them think I was shrinking. I was actually collecting evidence. Every slight, every laugh at my expense. Every time they looked at me like I was a stain they couldn't quite bleach out. I kept the receipts, not in a shoebox under my bed, in my head, in the quiet, burning place behind my ribs. They thought silence meant defeat. They were wrong. Silence was preparation, and I've had a very long time to prepare. I've learned that the most powerful thing you can do in a room full of people who underestimate you is to let them keep talking. So I do. I sit through the dinners, the thinly veiled insults, the casual reminders that I'm the family's charming little failure. I nod when they suggest I get serious about a real career. I smile faintly when they joke about my cute little app. I let every word land, every laugh echo, every patronizing glance slide right over me like water on stone, because every second they spend believing I'm nothing is another second I'm safe. The truth is this: I stopped being nothing a long time ago. I am the founder, silent, invisible founder, of Nova Flow Dynamics. Most people in the logistics world know the name now. They don't know it's mine. 3 years ago, I incorporated under a clean, neutral LLC with layers of proxies and holding companies so thick that even the sharpest corporate investigators would need months and a court order to trace it back to me. I wanted the work to speak, not the surname. I wanted the product to win on merit, not on borrowed prestige. NovaFlow isn't just another app. It's an AI-driven logistics platform that optimizes end-to-end supply chains in real time. Predictive routing, dynamic pricing, automated compliance across 47 countries, carbon footprint minimization that actually moves the needle instead of just greenwashing on quarterly reports. We don't sell software. We sell seconds shaved off transit times, millions saved on demurrage, entire fleets rerouted before a storm even makes landfall. And right now, 3 of the largest global freight conglomerates are in a quiet, ferocious bidding war to acquire us. They call it strategic interest. I call it panic. Because the numbers we're posting, triple-digit month-over-month growth, retention rates that make SaaS veterans weep, pilot contracts with carriers who've never before outsourced anything, aren't normal. They're terrifying. Last month, I signed the term sheet for Series B. Valuation north of 9 figures. Higher, much higher, than the market cap of the mid-sized shipping firm my father has spent the last 25 years building, the one he still refers to as the family legacy, whenever he's had one too many single malts. I could have told them. I could have walked into last Christmas dinner, dropped the press release on the table between the glazed ham and the silver gravy boat, and watched their faces rearrange themselves into something resembling respect. But I didn't, because silence isn't weakness. Silence is strategy. There's an NDA the size of a novella wrapped around every piece of this deal. More than that, though, there's something cleaner about letting them believe their version of me. The version where I'm still the girl in thrift store hoodies who can't be trusted at a gala. The version that keeps them comfortable, complacent. Every time my mother sighs about my wasted potential, every time Damien slides another condescending envelope under my door, every time my father makes a toast to real success while pointedly not looking at me. I add another brick to the wall I'm building, not a wall to keep them out, a wall to keep the surprise inside until the moment is perfect. They think I'm hiding because I'm ashamed. They have no idea I'm hiding because I'm lethal. The acquisition offers keep climbing. The term sheets get longer. The lawyer's emails arrive at 3 a.m. with subject lines that would make most founders faint. I read them in the dark of my tiny rented apartment, the one I still live in because I like the anonymity, the walk upstairs, the fact that no one ever guesses this is where the mind behind NovaFlow actually sleeps. I sign nothing without triple checking. I negotiate like someone who grew up watching deals being made over dinner tables I was never invited to sit at. I remember every lesson they never meant to teach me. And when the dust settles, when the wire clears, when the announcement drops, when the headlines finally connect the dots between the quiet girl they laughed at and the founder who just sold for 9 figures plus earnouts, they will understand. Not because I'll rub it in their faces. I won't need to. The silence will do it for me. Because the cruelest revenge isn't loud. It's the moment they realize everything they said about you was wrong, and you let them keep saying it, right up until the second it became impossible to pretend anymore. I close my laptop. Outside, the city is quiet. Inside, something else is very loud. It's the sound of preparation finally becoming detonation. And when it goes off, I won't even have to raise my voice. They'll hear it anyway. The restaurant is the same one we always use for these occasions. Same heavy linen, same over-polished silver, same waiters who recognize my family's name and lower their voices accordingly. Tonight the air feels thicker, though. Maybe it's the extra bottle of Bordeaux my father insisted on opening. Maybe it's because Valeria, sitting directly across from me, isn't performing the polite disinterest the way everyone else does. She's actually listening. Not the performative nod and smile version of listening my family expects from new additions. Real listening, the kind where her eyes stay on my face, even when I'm not the one speaking. We're halfway through the main course when she tilts her head slightly and asks me the first real question of the evening. "So, Aria," she says, voice calm and curious, "what exactly does your platform do?" I read something recently about AI optimizing container flows at the port level, dynamic berthing assignments, predictive dwell time modeling. Is that the kind of thing you're working on? The table goes quiet. My mother's fork pauses midair. My father's eyebrows lift in that slow, theatrical way he uses when someone has just said something mildly obscene at a business lunch. Damien actually snorts into his wine glass. I feel the shift like pressure dropping before a storm. I could deflect. I've done it 1,000 times. Smile, change the subject, let them believe I'm still playing in the kiddie pool of ambition. But Valeria's gaze is steady, expectant, and for once, I don't want to disappear. Yes, I say simply. Among other things, we use reinforcement learning to reroute vessels in real time, based on weather data, port congestion forecasts, fuel price volatility, and even geopolitical risk signals. Last quarter, we reduced average demurrage costs for our pilot clients by 23%. The AI doesn't just suggest, it commits and executes within guardrails the carriers set. Valeria's eyes brighten. She leans forward. That's impressive. Are you using graph neural networks for the multimodal routing? Or is it more transformer-based sequence prediction? My brother's knife clatters against his plate. He laughs, short, sharp, the laugh he uses when he thinks someone is embarrassing themselves. Valeria, come on, he says, shaking his head like she's just asked a child to explain quantum physics. She's not in the same league. It's a cute side project, that's all. Don't turn this into an interview. My mother sets her glass down with deliberate care. Exactly, she murmurs. Arya has other talents. What she really needs is to find a nice man who can take care of her. Someone stable. Someone who understands how the world actually works. She smiles at me with that familiar mixture of pity and superiority. You're still young enough, darling. There's time. The words land the way they always do. Soft, smiling knives. I've heard variations of them since I was 16. But tonight, something is different. Valeria doesn't laugh with them. She doesn't nod in polite agreement. She doesn't look away. Instead, she turns back to me, ignoring the rest of the table entirely. 23%, she repeats quietly. That's not hobby-level impact. That's enterprise grade. Who are your pilot clients? If you can say. I hesitate, just long enough for the silence to stretch. Then I answer. 3 of the top 10 global carriers by TEU capacity, plus 2 regional players in Southeast Asia and 1 in the Med. We're under NDA for most of the specifics, but the largest one is running our system on 78% of their Asia-Europe lanes. My father clears his throat, loudly. Enough of this tech talk, he says, waving a hand as though swatting away a fly. We're here to celebrate an engagement, not play Silicon Valley charades. But Valeria isn't listening to him either. She's looking at me like she's seeing me for the first time. And then she says the sentence that changes the temperature of the entire room. I read about Nova Flow Dynamics last week. The Series B round. 9-figure valuation. 3 suitors fighting over exclusivity. They're calling it the most disruptive logistics play since Flexport. She pauses. Then, very softly, is that yours? The question hangs there like smoke. My mother's smile freezes. My father's glass stops halfway to his lips. Damien's face goes blank for a second, genuine confusion, before the realization starts to crawl across it like slow poison. I don't answer right away. I let the silence do the work. I let them sit in it. I let them replay every condescending word they've said tonight, every joke at my expense, every time they reminded me I was the family disappointment. Then I meet Valeria's eyes. Calm, level, no triumph, no venom, just clarity. Yes, I say. It's mine. No one speaks for what feels like a very long time. My mother's hand flutters to her necklace. My father stares at his plate as though it might offer him an escape route. Damien's mouth opens, closes, opens again. He looks like someone just told him the sky is green. Valeria doesn't gloat. She doesn't need to. She simply nods once, small and certain. I thought so, she says. The way you answered. It wasn't theory. It was ownership. She turns to my brother then, her voice gentle but unyielding. Damien, you were saying she's not in the same league? He doesn't answer. He can't. Because the league just changed. And everyone at this table, everyone who spent years treating me like a charming liability, a project to be pitied, or fixed, or quietly sidelined, finally understands something they should have understood long ago. I wasn't hiding because I was ashamed. I was hiding because I was waiting. And the wait just ended. The silence after Valeria's revelation isn't the kind that begs to be filled. It's the kind that presses down, heavy and final. Like the moment right before a building implodes. Quiet, inevitable, irreversible. I feel every pair of eyes on me now. Not the pitying glances I've endured for years. Not the amused dismissal. Real shock. The kind that strips away pretense and leaves people raw. I set my napkin down carefully, fold it once, place it beside my untouched plate, The small motion feels enormous in the stillness. Then I stand. Not quickly, not dramatically, just deliberately, the way I've stood up in boardrooms after closing rounds, after signing term sheets that moved hundreds of millions, after telling very powerful people no when they thought the answer would always be yes. My chair slides back with a soft scrape against the polished floor. I smooth the front of my dress, the same navy one Damien once paid for, the one I chose because it fit perfectly and cost exactly what his generous envelope allowed. Tonight it feels like armor. I look at each of them in turn. My father first. The man who built an empire on handshakes and golf course deals, who still measures success by the size of the boat in the marina and the thickness of the Rolodex. His face is slack, mouth slightly open, the color gone from his cheeks. For the first time in my memory, he looks small. My mother next. The architect of every perfect family photograph, every charity gala seating chart, every whispered correction when one of us stepped out of line. Her hand is frozen halfway to her necklace. The pearls tremble slightly. She's always been the one who could smooth any awkward moment with a smile and a change of subject. There is no subject to change to now. And Damien, my brother, who has spent his entire adult life standing on the pedestal they built for him, who believed the hierarchy was eternal because he was at the top of it. His phone is still face up on the table next to Valeria's. The article about the invisible unicorn glaring up at him like an accusation. He isn't laughing anymore. He isn't even breathing regularly. I speak. My voice is calm, low. The same tone I use when I'm explaining cap tables to skeptical VCs or walking engineers through a critical pivot. Please have your team reach out to my assistant on Monday, I say, addressing Valeria directly, though the words are clearly meant for everyone. We can discuss next steps then. I'll make sure she prioritizes it. Valeria nods once, professional, composed, the tiniest spark of admiration in her eyes. I don't wait for replies. There won't be any coherent ones anyway. I turn and walk toward the exit, not rushing, not looking back. The same measured stride I use when leaving a negotiation where I've already won. Behind me, the table is a tableau of ruin. I can picture it without turning, my father staring at the space where I stood, trying to reconcile the daughter he mocked with the founder who just rendered his entire life's work quaint by comparison. My mother clutching her napkin like a lifeline, realizing that every lecture about finding a man to take care of you was delivered to someone who now commands more capital than most small countries. Damien, silent, finally. Blessedly silent, understanding that the little sister he slipped cash to so she wouldn't embarrass him is the one whose signature now moves markets he can only read about in the Financial Times. They thought they knew the hierarchy. Father at the top, provider, decision-maker, legacy builder. Mother beside him, curator of perfection, enforcer of appearances. Damien next, heir apparent, golden child, future of the name. And me, always last. The afterthought. The one who needed fixing, funding, forgiveness. The one who could be contained with a few $100s and a condescending note. That hierarchy didn't just bend tonight. It shattered, because the person they ridiculed the most is the one who has already surpassed them all. Not in ego, not in cruelty, but in cold, measurable reality. Valuation, impact, influence. The metrics they worship. I have more of them now than they ever will. And the cruelest part? I didn't need to shout it. I didn't need to throw receipts in their faces or list the zeros in my cap table. I simply stopped hiding. My silence all these years, the one they interpreted as weakness, shame, defeat, was never any of those things. It was power. The power to choose when the mask came off. The power to let them build their illusions higher and higher until the fall would hurt the most. The power to walk away from the table knowing they would spend years replaying this dinner, searching for the moment they missed it, the clue they ignored. I push through the heavy glass doors into the cool night air. The city hums around me, traffic, distant laughter. The low pulse of life that doesn't care about family legacies or dinner table hierarchies. I breathe in deeply. For the first time in as long as I can remember, the tightness in my chest is gone. Not because I've won, because I no longer need their approval to know I already have. And that, more than any valuation or headline, is the real detonation. The quiet kind, the permanent kind, the kind that echoes long after the room has emptied and the lights have gone out. The heavy glass doors of the restaurant swing shut behind me with a soft, final hush. The sound is almost polite. Nothing dramatic, no slam, no echo that demands attention. Just closure. I don't look back. Not once. The night air hits my face like cool water after being trapped too long in an overheated room. It smells faintly of rain that hasn't fallen yet, mixed with the distant exhaust of taxis and the faint sweetness of night-blooming jasmine from the planters lining the valet stand. I breathe it in slowly, deliberately, letting it fill the spaces inside me that used to ache whenever I walked away from one of their dinners, feeling smaller than when I arrived. Tonight there is no ache, only clarity. I keep walking, past the line of black cars waiting for their owners, past the doorman who nods respectfully without knowing who I am or what just happened inside those walls. My heels click steadily against the pavement, each step measured, unhurried. I could call a car. I could have the driver who's been on standby for the last 3 hours pull up in 30 seconds. But I don't. I want to feel the distance grow under my own feet. Behind me, in that candlelit dining room, they are still sitting at the table. I don't need to see them to know exactly what the scene looks like now. My father, staring at the empty chair where I sat, hands flat on the linen as though bracing himself against an invisible wind. The man who once told a room full of investors that his greatest legacy was his son, because daughters, apparently, were decorative at best, now confronted with the reality that the daughter he dismissed is the one whose signature moves more money in a single quarter than his entire company has cleared in the last 5 years. My mother, clutching her wineglass so tightly the stem might snap, lips parted in the beginning of a sentence she will never finish. The woman who spent decades curating perfection, who believed a flawless facade was the only currency that mattered, now staring at the wreckage of her own narrative. Every time she told me to find a man who can take care of you, she was speaking to someone who already commands boardrooms full of men who would kill for 5 minutes of my attention. And Damien, my brother, the golden heir, slumped slightly in his seat, phone face down now, the screen dark. The same man who once slipped cash under my door like he was buying silence, who laughed when Valeria asked real questions, who believed the family hierarchy was carved in stone. Tonight that stone cracked, and the crack runs straight through the center of his certainty. They are ruins, not of a building, but of a belief system, the belief that status is inherited, not earned, that worth is measured by how well you photograph next to power, not by what power you actually create. That silence from the youngest child means surrender, not strategy. They will sit there for a long time after the waiters start clearing plates. They will speak in fragments, half sentences, questions that trail off into nothing. They will try to rewrite what just happened. She must have exaggerated, or it can't be that big, or we always knew she had potential. But the words will taste like ash, because deep down, in the place where pride used to live unchallenged, they know. They know I didn't need their acceptance tonight. I didn't need their applause, their apologies, their sudden, belated pride. I stopped needing those things years ago, quietly, invisibly, the same way I built everything else. I walk another block, then another. The city opens around me, neon signs flickering in Vietnamese and English, motorbikes weaving through traffic like schools of silver fish, laughter spilling from open-fronted cafes. Life continues here, indifferent to family dramas and shattered illusions. It feels like freedom, Not the loud, triumphant kind people imagine when they fantasize about revenge. The quiet kind, the kind that doesn't require witnesses. Because the real victory isn't that they finally see me, it's that I no longer need them to. Somewhere along the way, I stop feeling the weight of their expectations. It isn't dramatic. No sudden tears, no clenched fists, no whispered curses at the sky. It simply lifts, like a coat I've been wearing too long in a room that's finally warm enough without it. Not everyone who walks away from you is a loss. Sometimes they are the last heavy thing you needed to set down. Sometimes leaving is the gentlest form of mercy you can give yourself. I reach the corner where the street opens onto the river. The water is black and glassy under the bridge lights, reflecting fragments of the city in broken pieces. I stand there for a moment, hands in my pockets, watching a barge slide past so slowly it barely disturbs the surface. Then I turn toward home, not the big house on the hill where I grew up, but the small apartment across town where my laptop still hums on the desk, where emails from lawyers and VCs wait for Monday, where the future I built doesn't depend on anyone's approval. The door closes behind me, the same way the restaurant door did. Soft, certain, final. And for the first time in my life, the sound doesn't feel like goodbye, it feels like beginning.